No idea. But
Oh, that's a good
but
question. I'll see if I
yeah,
can.
we'll give it our best shot,
Yeah, we'll see if I
right?
can answer something.
And okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel. Welcome to the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, episode number 362 with Andy Gibney of Unified Fighting System. As you guys are logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune Do dialogues. So, my dialogue partner today is a guy who inspired me to run the stairs at 3 different train stations this morning wearing my equipment bag and my stick bag. You did that.
Why?
Andy Gibney, welcome to the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues.
Well, thanks very much. Thanks for inviting me in the first place. But I'm intrigued. Why did you do that? What did I do?
I I've been reading your book for the past 3 days.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that's 10 years ago. A friend of mine, Mo Teague, has written a great book, and it's called I don't know what we like with profanity on here, but anyway, it's called "Have a Cup of Concrete, Have a Cup of Concrete, and Harden the Fuck Up," which I think is a great title. So
Yeah.
in his group, he has an award, which if you are lucky enough to get one, he gives you a cup of concrete.
Uh,
So that's a pretty cool thing, and I'm proud to be a member of the Concrete Club. So we all got we all, but 9 of us got one before Christmas, and he handed another 3 out at the weekend. So if you're in the Concrete
yeah.
Club, because this summer we're doing a thing called the Fan Dance, which is part of what the special for the SAS do as part of their training program, and you go up and
Right.
down this mountain in Wales. It's 15 kilometers, and I think they go 20, £35 pack plus water and food, which is about £55. But I think we're going to go easy, and I think we're £25 and food and stuff. And it takes their time is 4 hours 10. You have to do it in, and because we're old now, we're going to go for 6 hours. And there's about 14 of us doing it, but it's just one of those. You got to have a challenge every year, or else you just get stale.
Well, that was one of the things that stood out to me in reading the book. That idea you just mentioned about having a challenge. I
Hmm.
mean, so refresh my memory. That because if I remember correctly, that's an idea that you had when you were like what 10, 11, 12 years old.
Oh, the vanity thing. 18. I was
Okay.
18. I was 18. I didn't want to look shit when I was 50. So I've never known an 18-year-old that thinks like me, but it was pure vanity. I just didn't want to be a fat old man when I was 50.
Hmm.
So I became a slightly fat old man instead. So I looked around at that time period. What was that? 1980, 81. And I looked at the people who I have thought, well, they look in good shape in their 50s. And it was Clint Eastwood and Roger Moore and Robert Wagner. And Clint Eastwood had a film come out called well, there were two. There was Every Which Way But Loose, and then the
Hmm.
follow up was Any Which Way You Can with the one with the orangutan. And of
Yeah.
all the films that Clint Eastwood's done, that's still the most financially popular films he's ever done. But there was a scene in it where he was running 10 miles in jeans, which I thought was hilarious looking back at it now. I
Hmm.
thought, I know, I'll start running. And that was it. And then 3 months later, I started martial arts.
Ah,
I
I,
thought,
I I got introduced to running when I sparred a Canadian Taekwondo champion who had come home. I don't know if he himself was from Barbados or if his parents were from Barbados, but he had come home and he was doing a workshop at the local Shotokan place. And the Shotokan place is where I used to hang out. I never joined the school because I was a Jeet Kune Do guy, right?
uh-huh.
So, but I had a bunch of friends there that I would spar with regularly. And then this guy came, and after he and I had worked out together, I was talking to him about, and he talked about running. And I went out and I bought a pair. You ready for this? I bought a pair of Dunlop tennis shoes.
Oh, good man. The white and the green ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
right?
That's
Now,
classic stuff. That is.
you want to hear something funny? I am pretty sure that's what Chris Kent was wearing last weekend when he was here in Miami.
He was wearing your shoes. Shows how much you
Right?
wore them.
Yeah, right. I am pretty sure he was wearing a pair of Dunlop with the green logo on it.
Oh, see, that's retro.
Yeah,
Retro.
I
Over
guarantee you.
over here, they still want the yellow Tiger Asics or whatever that is. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
you're still going for the Dunlop greens.
Yeah. So okay. So like I told you before we came on camera, I really have no idea where to start with you. But this is something else that I realized. So again, refresh my memory.
Hmm.
You got three O levels, correct? Only three.
Yeah. At school,
Okay.
yeah.
I only got four.
All right, okay.
Right.
Well,
And
I did end up with four.
you did.
I went back to school, yeah, and got another one.
Yeah, I went back and it didn't work. So I think it's quite possible that in the history of Harrison College in Barbados, I might have been the first person to be promoted to lower six with less than five O levels.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if that's the same as the sixth form, but I wasn't in it very long before they expelled me. They said I was a bad influence, and they
Oh,
kicked
you
me
never
out.
made it through sixth form?
No. I only made it through a term, and then
Oh my God.
they expelled me the day after my 17th birthday. You're a bad influence, Gibney. They said.
And
I
look
said,
at you now.
yeah, yeah, exactly. How many
Right.
of them have written six books and
Yep.
fought for the country and all that stuff? Yeah, I do think
Yeah.
about that sometimes.
But I was not aware that it was six books. I really wasn't. But I got to tell you something. Look, because you guys in England all confuse me. Because we got the Ewans, we got the Andys, we got the Phils, and between the Andy Gibney and the Andy Norman and the Phil Norman, I can't keep up.
No, we sort of blend. Well, Andy Norman's easy because he lives in Spain.
Right.
He's the rich one. Phil Norman's easy because he's the tall one.
Okay.
He does the ghost, and I'm the small one.
Yeah. But reading that book. So here's a question for you.
Hmm.
I believe that when it comes to like the politics of the world,
Hmm.
that people in England look at people in America, they're crazy cousins who have all these ideas about the Amendment and guns and freedom of speech and all this stuff. My question is this:
Uh-huh.
is there something similar in the world of Jeet Kune Do between the way people in England look at Jeet Kune Do and the way people in America look at Jeet Kune Do, but also the way English Jeet Kune Do people think about American Jeet Kune Do people? Does any of that make sense?
A little bit. I'll answer with a Richard Bustillo story. So Richard Bustillo, I met in 1990 in Nottingham, England. So I was impressed with him straight away. I really liked him. So different from Innocenzo. Dan
Mhm.
was a very quiet man, but very dynamic. Very dynamic. The first time I ever went to an Innocenzo seminar, I remember one technique, but I was just amazed by him. I was just, I turned up in the middle of a whirlwind. It was like twisters trying to get inside what
Mhm.
Innocenzo was doing that day. But I loved it. 3 years later, I met Richard, and man, was he different. I mean, he was so laid back, very Hawaiian,
Yes.
and I liked him. So anyway, a few years passed, and we'd meet from time to time, different things. I go to as many seminars as I could, and then in '96, I went to the World Championships were held in Los Angeles, the Stick Fighting World Championships, and he hadn't been over for about 18 months. And I said to him, "Is anybody bringing you to the UK now?" Because there was a guy, Martin Sterling, who's now passed. He was bringing him over, originally brought over by John Carrigan. And he said, no one's bringing him over. I said, well, can I bring you over? He said, of course you can. So a year later, he came to England, and we were talking about stuff, and he was telling me that when he goes to Mexico, he's picked up at the airport. His friend is a chief of police. He gets a cavalcade to take him to his hotel, and it's like the president has arrived.
Right.
So Richard thought this was amazing. I pick him up in my car, take him to the hotel, and the first day of the seminar, I pick him up. I say, "Oh, it's time to go now." He said, "I've missed breakfast. Is it all right if we get breakfast?" I went, "No." I said, "You're late. Let's go." And he was like, "Hang on, in Mexico, I get all this stuff. You come
Yeah.
here and you just stick me in the car." I went, "Well, you should have woke up earlier, shouldn't you?" And that was it. And I think he always appreciated that with me, that I was very down to earth with him, and I loved him to bits. I mean, and I respected him massively.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it was just like, well, this is Jeet Kune Do. Let's just get on with it. So
Yeah.
maybe that sort of answers some of it. There seems there's a lot of deference in the JK world. I suppose to some degree that makes sense. But they're just human beings, and Richard was always very down to earth with me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I got my apprenticeship with Richard, it was the strangest grading I ever had, if you want to call it that,
How's that?
because we did the seminar. We had a good turnout. We had about 80, 90 people, so we did okay. But of course, the first thing that I had to sort of comprehend was how big the fees were compared to anything else I'd dealt with in the past. And that scared the life out of me at first. But we covered all the fees, and that was all right. But as I said, I've met Richard loads of times, and he was always Richard that you knew. Very relaxed, very nice guy. But with me, that whole weekend, he was really weird. And he asked me a lot of questions about my family life. He met my girlfriend, who he had met the year before in America. Came to our house, as I remember. He had dinner with us at the house. Saw my two stepsons. Talked a lot about family. Watched how I did the business side. Watched how I was with the students. How I was with him. Everything was paid. And then when the seminar was over, I took him back to the airport. And he always had the hotel the night before, and then he went back on the 8 or 10 o'clock plane in the morning. And when we were at the hotel, I dropped him off at the hotel, and he said, "Oh, do you want a drink?" I was like, "Oh, okay, we'll have a drink."
Mm-hmm.
He was completely different at that point. I'd passed the test, and I hadn't realised I was being tested.
Right.
But what he wanted, it wasn't enough to do the seminar. He wanted someone to represent IMB.
Mm-hmm.
And there hadn't been anybody for a while. And it was very important to him that if we were going to do this properly, that he had someone that he could trust with the name of IMB and also with the business side of it and what we were going to do subsequently. And I passed the test, and I got my certificate the following year, and it all followed on from there, really. And there are other people around, like Lee Bander, who'd been around a long time. John Carrigan was still around at that time. He'd been around a long time. But it all sort of developed after that, really, and our relationship was always it wasn't reverential, but I had a lot of respect for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I could call him Richard. I didn't have to call him Seafood.
Yeah.
I didn't have to. It was never that, and yet, and I would watch people. We did a lot of seminars together. We went all over the country. And we would go up to Newcastle, which from where I live now is like a 4.5-hour drive. I know these are short distances compared to America, but in England, we don't have the same roads. and we would go down to Weymouth to see Moteague, which again is 4.5 hours south. And we'd go all over the country. And I would observe the way people were with Richard and the way he was with people.
Mm-hmm. And
his background with being in Continental Airlines in the personnel department really shaped who he became as a teacher as well, because he was always very respectful. But if he didn't like someone, he'd tell me afterwards.
Right.
And sometimes I could pick that up on that sometimes, and he would say, "What the hell were they talking about?" and stuff like that. And those early days, like we were talking about on the Dan Holloway thing a couple of months back, those early days of Jeet Kune Do seminar. 3, 2, 1. Man.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right. No worries. All right.
Like Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
So where were we?
Well, we were talking about Richard and his approach, and I thought of a couple of things.
Oh yeah. I know what it was. Where we would go to see the questions that people are asking, and it was always in those early days. It was always Bruce Lee questions. There were lots and lots of Bruce Lee stuff.
Right.
Literally from. my interest in Bruce Lee from knowing the man who knew the man was what was the man like. Honestly, the martial arts didn't make that much difference to me. I was intrigued by the individual.
Hmm.
Same way that if I met Jerry Schilling these days, I would ask him about Elvis because there aren't that many people left who knew Elvis.
Right.
And these days there's not many people left who knew Bruce Lee either. We're all getting older, and so
Oh yeah.
that was my privilege to ask those questions of so many people.
Right.
And I gradually started to get this idea of who Lee was to a degree. But because of all of that, I became more interested in Richard anyway. You
Yeah.
know, and,
He
and again,
he and I had the airline industry in common because he worked for Continental, I worked for
Mhm.
Eastern.
Okay,
So that so when he and I met, we kind of clicked and connected because of that, because
yeah,
we could talk about stuff that people around us had no idea what was going on.
hmm
you know um and now, but so as I was doing my research on you and what have you, I realized this: you and I also have, here's what we have in common. You're one of the few people that uses the word unified
yeah.
in the name of his school or his system.
It's you, me, and Mark McFan, I think.
Does Mark use it?
Yeah, Mark
Yeah.
McFan is Unified Fighting Arts, as I remember.
Okay. All right. So tell me the idea. Let's compare. Tell me the
hmm
idea behind your usage of it, and then I'll
Yeah.
tell you mine.
Well, first of all, almost everybody spells it wrong and call it
True.
United.
They always call it United.
They do, yeah, and it just makes me think I'm a football team. Uh, so I've had that. One of my favourite
Okay, you only get two chances to do that. All right. Now the Wi-Fi gods have to work with us.
I hope so. You told me there was two tabs open. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah. Okay. So unified.
Unified, yeah, unified. How did it come to me? I was
Yeah.
walking to work one day, and I was trying to work out a name for the school because we just started it in April of '87. And I was walking to work, and I was doing a thesaurus idea through all the different things that came together, and I fighting systems. See, now I'd have probably gone with a different name because
Oh, really?
unified fighting systems immediately sounds aggressive. And
Okay.
in the '80s, you could be more aggressive than you can in 2026. So, but
Okay.
that was it really. It was just a blended system. It just came to
Ah.
me. I can still remember the street that I live not far from there now, actually. So that
Mhm.
was it. It was me going through a thesaurus of words in my head
Yeah.
rather than combined. I didn't like combined much, and blended. And I think my teacher at the time was Terry Barnett, and he called his art was integrated fighting arts. So all these different things. Anyway, that was it. It was pretty simple.
Ah.
And
Okay.
you?
Um, I literally took it from the Latin unus fio.
See, that's why you got four O levels, only got three.
Yeah, I actually got a B in Latin.
Oh, did you?
Yes,
Well,
I
we didn't
did.
do that. I think I've got a Latin dictionary somewhere. Yeah, but somewhere close by there's a Latin dictionary, but I don't know where it is.
Yeah, unus
I've
fio.
only I only moved to this house three weeks ago, and
Oh
today I've
wow.
worked hard to make it look tidy in here.
Wow. Yeah, well, you definitely have you got the Bruce Lee library thing going on because you got over 2,000 books in your library back in 2016 or something.
Yeah, well about that.
So we got to cut him some slack, guys. Right?
Yeah, see, I know how to do it. You just click the button.
Okay.
Maybe it doesn't go under the water very well. I don't know.
Right. Okay. Where were we?
Unified, you speak Latin and I don't.
Yeah. Right. So my whole thing was I was it was this idea that Jeet Kune Do ultimately it might start it so Jeet Kune Do initially can start out as something that you do, something that you train, something that you practice or whatever, but
Mhm.
ultimately you become Jeet Kune Do,
I agree with that.
right? You are one with your art.
Yeah.
And that's where it came from.
Okay.
And so I kick up a fuss when people make it plural, Unified Martial Arts Academy. It can't be unified and plural.
That's way too deep for me. I just crossed the road thinking of a simple name. That's why I call it UFS most of the time.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go. Yeah. Well, we call it UMAA. And then one day, check this brainstorm, UMAA, using martial art as. And then you can fill
Okay.
in the blank. How you like that?
One day, Richard was over, and I said, "Oh, you know what IMB stands for?" He said, "Yeah, of course I do." He said, "I named it." I said, "No," I said, "Richard, it's mostly bullshit." He looked at me and went, "You're just an arse."
Yep. Yep. I have a girlfriend who says it means just kidding, Dwight.
Yeah, yeah, we heard that one before as well. Not
Right?
the Yeah, Terry Barnett told me that. That's a Bruce Lee joke. Just kidding,
Yeah.
Dan. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. All right. We have to get serious.
yeah.
Right. So I want you to clarify for me what these words mean to you:
hmm
style,
hmm
system,
Yeah.
and method.
Okay. Well, style never changes. Style never goes out of fashion. So we're actually working on a book at the moment, and
Mhm.
they talked about these are people who work in fashion, and they talked about how style is always present, whereas fashion goes in and out, changes all the time.
Wow. That's
So
sweet.
style is always present. So method, yeah, method
Uh-huh.
was another one.
Yep. Method.
So method, well, method is the I suppose it's the way it's taught to you and the way you interpret. And then what was the third one?
System.
No, system. Yeah, system would be the laid down. That would be. So I learned the Dossi Paris system. So
Okay.
when I wanted to learn Dossi Paris, I wanted to learn a martial art that I could learn direct from a teacher who only knew that system. He might have known other things, but he really knew that system.
Mhm.
And he would say, "This is what this is." And my teacher then was Danny Good, and well, he still is. But he gave me the syllabus. I then rewrote it because it was a bit convoluted, and
Mhm.
then we made that was the system. That's the Dossi Paris system. So that filled in all the gaps. Now, not necessarily everything you needed to know to do Filipino martial arts was in there. There'd be some superfluous stuff. There would be things in there that were you wouldn't necessarily want to teach to everybody. And
Right.
maybe that's why it was so difficult to learn Filipino martial arts as a system from Dan in the Santo, or only because I only went to seminars and I only ever been to his academy once back in '96.
Mhm.
Whereas I've been to IB a few times, but again, you're getting those bits. It's not like my students who come to me every week and they're learning that little bit,
Yeah.
and it just adds and adds and adds. So that I'd say that's
Yeah.
it. So style never goes out of never goes out of fashion because fashion is fashionable. Just like martial arts, I suppose. BJJ is the big thing. I remember when ninjas were all over the place, which was
Yeah.
bizarre because you shouldn't be allowed
Right.
to see them. But it was kickboxing was the thing, and JKD never really was the thing. It was one of the things. It became the thing to the people who loved it, but it was never the big thing ever. And so I suppose that was the case. So that was the fashion system is this is it, and then the method is the way that we are taught and the way we interpret, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah. Syllabus.
Yep.
Because there's a passage in the book where I think you said something like that we were 1 year away from a written syllabus. I think there's a
hmm
line in the book like that. And that intrigued me because did Richard Bustillo have a written syllabus?
No.
Okay.
Silly bloody hell. No. The amount of times you asked him for one and there never was. But
Right.
having said that, Steve De La Cruz, who now runs the OMB, does have a guide as it is. So there is a
Uh-huh.
much more formalized way of doing things in the IMD these days. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I wrote my first syllabus on a typewriter in 1993 with Tipex, all that stuff, and it's been rewritten many, many times ever since. And
Yeah.
and that will always be the case because it changes as time moves on. So, yeah, we have a
Hmm.
written syllabus, and I mean we have belts. We do a belt program. Now in Jeet Kune
Right.
Do there are no belts, but in unified fighting systems there are belts because I found, especially as I do this for a living,
Right.
people need the motivation. That took me 2 clicks.
Okay. Um, so this person must have a British Airways history because the name is Speedbird Concorde.
Right?
And it says Dave said to pay the bloody electric bill.
Oh, I know. It's Dave Ball. That's an Englishman that lives in California because he knows it's dry. He knows it's drier there.
Right? But I saw that Speedbird Concorde. I'm like, that's British Airways. That's British Airways all the way.
He's from the north as well. No wonder he moved to America.
Ah.
We've only ever met once, and we met at Richard's memorial service.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we talk a lot. I mean, he's a really nice guy, but we
Yeah.
we sat next to each other at Richard's memorial. Dwight, on this thing, I've got all these tabs open now. Should I close some of these? Do you think that's causing a problem?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure. You mean in your browser, you've got a
Yeah,
bunch
yeah,
of
yeah,
things?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That might be pulling megahertz or whatever they call it away from what you're doing. So yeah.
Well, I'm going to click these, and if I cut myself off, we'll know what's going on. Chris Kent don't have these problems.
No, no. But you should, but Chris has issues with the amount of permissions that you have to give Google. Uh, as you're logging in.
Can you see me?
Yep, yep. You're still there, and I can still hear
Oh,
you. So
okay.
you're good. You're
Okay.
good. Right. Um, okay. Here's another. I put these questions under a category.
So
Okay.
we found out if you click lots of them, they don't like it.
Well, I mean, I don't have the issues because like I'm on a Ethernet cable right now and what have you. I do it old school because that seems to me to be the most solid approach. I've
Yeah.
had people come on here and they're trying to Bluetooth it and use powered earbuds and whatever, and none of that stuff ever makes sense, right? Anyhow, so I was telling you that I had three questions for you under the category of structural clarification.
Hmm.
So, style, system, and method was one.
Yeah.
The other one is, what does totality mean to you in a Jeet Kune Do context?
Uh, well, the simplest answer to that is just covering the four ranges. So kicking,
Mhm.
punching, trapping, grappling. That would be totality. You're learning the whole system. But of course, the issue is, and this is where we get the arguments between what is Jeet Kune Do and what isn't Jeet Kune Do. And honestly, I don't care.
Right.
What I care about then is, see, Richard used to come over and he would say, "Oh no, four ranges. No, that's not it. It's long, medium, and close." So he would say, "Long is the weapons range, medium is a stand up range, and then close is the ground." But clearly, it isn't because
Hmm.
there's that. I never agreed with that. It's too confusing to me because you can do weapons on the ground.
Hmm.
Um, so totality to me is just learning all the ranges and the systems as well. My problem with Jeet Kune Do in terms of the original system, if you want to call it that for a moment, just park that
Hmm.
in that little corner,
Hmm.
is once you start to learn all these other arts, there will be some arts that you think are amazing. Like I never really got into Penjak Silat very much. I loved what I saw.
Hmm.
Cass would come over. I saw the question. Yes, I was in Gothenburg in 2005 with Richard Bustillo.
Ah, yeah.
There you go. Yes, that was me. That was me. That was great. We went to see a movie together. There's loads of us all went to see a film. Oh, Gothenburg. No, Gothenburg. I didn't. No, that was Christian Sand I went to. No, I didn't go to that one.
Well, Ricard says that you got a twin somewhere.
Yeah, well, my dad did get around.
Ah.
So yeah, going back to the question of totality, is is as in a sense who has said many times. Some people will like more of this, some people will like more of that, and we
Mhm.
are we are offered the choice of so many different things. Over the years, I found that I like the trapping arts, I like the Filipino arts, I like the boxing and the kicking. I've never been a big fan of the grappling, but you have to learn the grappling in order to be at least competent in it. But I never wanted to go
Right.
down the BJJ route. I was too old to compete in MMA, and I'm pretty glad about that, really. Because I probably would have done, but I wouldn't have been very good at it. I don't think. That's probably the truth of it.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
know what I like and continue to study those things. I mean, the analogy with food is always great, isn't it? I've never eaten Thai food that often. It's quite nice, but if you give me Italian food, I'll eat it most days, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So here's the third one, and then there's a fourth one that's actually designed to put them all together. The
Hmm.
concept of a through line, as in the way you run things at UFS. How are they
Hmm.
connected? Where you start, let's say with white belt, and where you
Hmm.
go to black belt. Describe
Yep.
that through line. What are you looking for? How is it presented to students and what have you?
Okay, so the early grades, the first grade is to teach them to punch and kick, because that's what most people in the UK, at least, would expect. They would expect to learn some self-defense techniques within the stand-up range.
Okay.
Now, at UFS, I have four areas that we teach. We teach the mind, stand-up, groundwork, and the weapons. They're the four areas that we cover. So, as a white belt, you would learn the 1967 Criminal Law Act, which is the main law pertains to self-defense in the UK. You'll teach them some of the basic principles. You'll teach them about 5 ways of attack, but they'll only work on single direct. And then you would start to uh, learn to kick and punch, really.
Hmm.
And then there's a little bit of stand-up grappling. Then when you go to the next level, you're introduced to weapons, cinco terros, only 5 angles, self-defense more aimed, the stick work aimed towards more self-defense. But then you learn to counter the things that you learned for the previous level:
Okay.
slipping, blobbing, and weaving.
Yeah.
First Larry Hartsell seminar I went to, and he taught me to slip a punch rather than block it. I thought I'd just been touched by God. It was like, we don't do this shit anymore. All of a sudden
Right.
you can do. I was amazed. Honestly, it was just like it blew my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you start to learn those principles. Then by 9 months in, they're sparring more. They're doing groundwork. They're doing a little bit more complicated. I think they're introduced to double stick as well. So they're starting to build competencies with all of the four areas. So they've got to understand the philosophy. They've got to understand the stand-up range. They're going to get more competent at kicking and punching, and they've been introduced to some weapons at
Hmm.
a basic level and the groundwork. So we start to, 5 positions.
No.
Hello,
No.
mate, you've
No.
gone. Oh, there you go. Jeez. And so that's it. And then the next 3 grades are all to do mostly with an understanding of the weaponry, greater understanding of the groundwork, and greater understanding and skills with the weapons and the trapping area. And then the final 3 grades are building the competency within the sparring of all of those range. So rather than structure, you're having less structure. So by the time you get to your black belt, you've got this really deep understanding of a philosophical idea. The other areas that we put into the philosophy, not just on the Jeet Kune Do side, but we have David Goggins' 10 Principles from his book, Can't Hurt Me. And we also use the McRaven speech, 10 Ways to Change the World. And, make your bed, never
Hmm.
give in, that type of stuff. All of that, I think, all of it is built into the syllabus to try and round these people out a little bit and to expose them to not just Jeet Kune Do, but all these other things as well.
Right.
in a way that is useful, functional, um, and fun as well. One of the things that I realised about 4 years is that I believe that people train in martial arts for 6 reasons. What 6 reasons? Sometimes that reason will change as you train. So the first reason would be self-defense. Second reason would be sport, personal development, history and tradition, fitness, and the social aspects as well. But no one ever started martial arts to learn about history and tradition of Filipino arts. No one could give a shit, could they? But as time goes
Right.
on, they become more
Right.
interested in these things. So we're running a series of workshops this year called From the Founders to the Future. So we started with Jeet Kune Do, and talked about Bruce Lee and Wing Chun, 1953 to 58. What happened then? This progression that happened. What happened once he passed away? The introduction of Filipino martial arts. So they get this timeline of arts, and then
Hmm.
by the time they get to me, what have I changed? How have I
Right.
done this? Now, to some people, that's sacrilege. But to me, this is the same thing that Baz Luhrmann has just done with the Elvis Presley movies that he did. The one 4 years ago and the new one he's just done. He's cut different Elvis Presley songs and put them together. And the purists go, oh, "I should never do that. Elvis would never have done that." And I think it's the same, exactly the same with Bruce Lee. You can't do that.
Right.
Well, it's 50 years old, so
Yeah.
why would you change it?
Yeah. Huh. Um, how of those 6 reasons, what percentage of people is there a particular one that a large percentage of people initially come in for? Which
Yeah,
one's
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. It's either sport or self-defense, and most of the time it's self-defense. And then,
Uh-huh.
strangely, fitness is a real big one. People like to use this as a method of getting fit. I get a lot of people say, "I've been to the gym, I get really bored with the gym, or I want to try something else." I have a friend of mine who said once, "If you want to get fit, this ain't the right place to come to get fit. You should just get fit." But I just let it go. If they say that's what they want to do, and we've done surveys on this where we asked people what their reasons were. My reason when I started martial
Hmm.
arts was self-defense. I was 5'7", 9.5 stone, which is for you 134 pounds or something.
Hmm.
And when it rained, I got blown away. It was one of those things, and so I started with Shogun. Quick realised that was a really bad system to learn for self-defense. So we went to Kempo where all the lunatics were, and that was great fun. And but by the time 6 years in, when I was introduced to the JKD, then all of a sudden, in the physical form, I'd read about it, and the guy that
Right.
I shared a house with at the time, he had the early books, the Dan and Santo books, which have been my
Hmm.
Bibles ever since, really. And
Yeah.
I thought, oh my God, I used to look in the back of the art and philosophy book and would love to meet all these people in the back of the book. And then one day you
Yeah.
go, you have met them all. That's a pretty cool thing. You know,
Yeah.
and it's like your tick list of what you do. And so these days, my main reason for training in martial arts is personal development. It goes back to what you said to me earlier about the challenges. It happens because otherwise, I just become an old man quick.
Right.
And it goes back to something that Clint Eastwood says when someone said to him, why are you still making movies in your 80s? And then it was his 90s. He said, I don't let the old man in. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. So a number of things just came up based on what you were saying. One, in the book, you said something about Shotokan, how it was
Um,
only the top guys who could use it for fighting. So what
True.
did that mean? Did that mean that you had to stick in it and become a top guy to learn how to fight? Or
Yeah.
or
That, that
okay,
was
so
my experience.
what impact did that have on you then as you became an instructor?
Oh, well, I left Shotokan within 18 months.
Right.
That was just, it was, we were at a party one day and these guys came in and they were causing hassle and the seniors were at the club, from the club
Hmm.
were at this party, and when it came down to helping to get these guys out of the house, they bloody hid upstairs, and that pissed me right off. They wouldn't
Ah,
come down, and there was one guy who was well known. He was real small guy, but he was a black belt in Kempo and had a reputation for being a bit. He was drunk as a lord. Came down the stairs and went, "Oh my God, it's you!" And they all buggered off. But the police turned up as well. But
Yeah.
that's where my girlfriend hit the guy on the head with a telephone receiver. You remember when the phone used to be on the wall?
Right.
She hit him across the head with the phone. I was like, oh shit, this is going to be fun, isn't it? But it
Yeah.
was my first live. There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
That was my first live experience of using improvised weaponry, and it worked really well. But
Yeah.
but at the same time, it just showed completely how inefficient Shotokan was for me, where you had to do head kicks. My legs were too short to do head kicks. You know,
Right.
it didn't matter how flexible I was. So we went to this Kempo school, which was like 8 miles away, and we went on the first night, and they were all in black gis rather than white gis, and there was a busy class as well. This is '83, and they were all screaming their heads off and being absolutely insane. And I thought, I want to go there. So that was it. I stayed there for
Yeah.
3.5 years. I had a great time.
Okay. All right. So now going finishing up on this structural clarification. So we
Hmm.
talked about style, system, and method,
Yeah.
totality, and the
Hmm.
through line. Now, here's the question: did that fight in the car park affect any or all of what we just talked about?
The one that I lost.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, yeah, massively. Yeah, massively. That was a big learning thing. I've never lost one since. Um, I broke all the rules.
Hmm.
So I wrote all these rules that I would advise people to do. And this was '92, and I had won the fight, and then the guy came back,
Right.
and I took my eye off the ball.
Yeah.
You know, and my girlfriend and my son were involved in it. You know, he was a baby then. So I was looking at that instead of just finishing the fight. So the totality part of it is, yeah, finish the fuckers. I mean, as simple as that. You never, and I've taught that lesson to people ever since.
Right.
You know, and it wasn't such an armed society then. You know, whereas now knives are very prevalent in the UK. Not guns, but knives, and you just have to be
Hmm.
careful. You've got to finish the fight, and yeah,
Yeah.
that was a massive, learning curve. And I got my the t-shirt you've got on now. I had one like that, and it got ripped. So that was that. Hello.
Yeah.
So
Um.
yeah. One
Okay.
loss can teach you a lot.
Right. So I love watching British TV. Okay. Especially a lot of the detective shows and the police shows and what have you. But I got to
Hmm.
ask you, do people really just turn around and put their hands behind their backs when the cops show up?
Sometimes, yeah. A lot of times they do.
Really? Really?
Yeah, a lot of times. I once helped a policeman arrest somebody out in Kettering Town Centre. That was quite funny because he saw this guy with his one move that he knew what to do. And he was fumbling around the other side, and I just distracted the guy and him crawling into the car. And I was like, "Why is that difficult?" Yeah. Are you talking about things like Morse,
No, I'm not.
Inspector Morse?
Well,
Is that what you
well.
watch?
Let's see. What? So what am I on right now? I think I'm on. Um. Ah. What? Jeez. I think I just started. No. 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 Blue lights.
Oh right, I haven't seen it, but I know of it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I think it. But that one's Ireland, I think. But in any case, but it fascinates me as I watch UK programming. I'm watching it, unfortunately, with American sensibilities, and I'm always expecting the bad guys to do, and they never do. The bad guys never do anything. It's like the cops show up, and all of a sudden, they're not bad guys anymore. And
Yeah.
you get a lady cop who can get the guy in the arm lock behind his back, and it works.
We're much tougher over here than you realise, you know.
Okay.
Did you ever watch a series called The Sweeney?
it's familiar, but I can't say that I did.
That's proper. That's proper 70s policing. That is. So all
Ah,
the English people on here now know what I'm talking about. So you want
okay,
to watch the Sweeney, the
okay,
Professionals, and Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes. That'll amuse. That'll keep you entertained.
okay. Ashes to Ashes, Life on Mars,
Yeah, Life on Mars
The
first, and then Ashes to Ashes.
Sweeney,
Yeah.
and The Professionals.
All the English people now know we're on proper television.
Okay, I'm on it.
All your American friends are going, "What is this man saying?" I've no idea what he's
That's okay. Like I tell them, I can't help it. I was born British, you know.
saying.
Right? So okay. Now I want to throw at you a proverbial internet question.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
If
we'll
Bruce,
just
yeah,
continue.
if Bruce Lee were alive today, would
Yes.
he recognize what is being taught as Jeet Kune Do?
I'm going to ask you a better question. I will answer that question.
Okay.
At the book launch for the book you're reading,
At the book launch.
Richard was there. It was his last seminar in the UK. We didn't know that at the time, but it was.
Oh, yeah.
And we had the book launch in a hotel where the seminar was. We had about, I don't know, about 80, 100 people in the room. And one guy drank far too much. And we were doing a Q&A session. And his question to Richard was, in a fight between Bruce Lee and Jesus Christ, who do you think would win?
Oh
We,
my God.
we never saw him the next day at the seminar, and I've never seen him again.
But did Richard answer?
I think he said, well, they were from different time periods, so it probably would never have happened.
Okay. That's a good that's a good one. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh, I hope Chris
Hmm.
Kent's watching this.
Oh
That
man.
seminar that we did in 2000 with Richard and Ted and Chris and John
And
was the
John
best
Little.
thing ever. It
Yeah.
was fantastic. Yeah, it really was great. And
Well,
on the last day of the seminar, we had a guy from Spain had come over, and we were having breakfast. This was just before they paid their bar bill. We were having breakfast, and there was a guy sitting across, and he'd been there all weekend. And Richard said to him, he said, "Oh, okay, Michael, nice to see you. I hope you have a good journey home." And Chris looked at him and he said, "His name's not Michael." And he said, "Well, he's been answering to it all weekend."
so when I read that story about the bar bill and what have you, I
Yeah,
took a snapshot of Ted Wong's 3 pounds,
£3.40. Yeah, I reread it
right?
today. I forgot how much it was.
Okay.
But yeah,
Chris Kent was 17 pounds. Whatever. I sent a snapshot of that to Chris because
yeah, yeah.
Chris's bar bill last weekend is probably quite similar.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Right?
We
So, yeah. Okay. So
John Little
now
did
you got to
300
answer my
pounds.
question. Would Bruce Lee recognize Jeet Kune Do today?
Well, would Bruce Lee have continued to evolve? And the question is undoubtedly yes.
Mhm.
So you could say that he wouldn't recognize it now, but then would we recognize it now either?
Ah, interesting.
The man, this was a man who's developing at such a fast rate. So we talk at the moment about how fast AI is developing,
Hmm.
and AI is developing very very quickly. You know, I did a really nice photo yesterday that I posted on my Facebook today about the people who have passed, who I care a
Yes,
great
I
deal
saw
about.
that. I
Four of
saw
them all
that.
together, and there was
Yeah.
yeah. So and they're all connected because of Richard. So
Hmm.
it seems like the relevant thing to do. You couldn't have done that a year ago. You know, in a year's time, the AI is changing. Now, the problem with AI is very generic at the moment, but it will become a time where it's much more specific.
Right.
Now, Bruce was developing. We know that Bruce was developing massively every year. Every
Bruce
year,
was
every
developing.
year it was a different incarnation of Jeet Kune Do. There's that story in the book where Ted told me at that event that in 1972, Bruce said to him on a telephone call, trapping's out. It is no longer relevant because of the boxing. But we don't know if in another 10 years' time. We don't know if it would have been developed in that way. The thing is, the man died. We don't know what he would have done.
Right.
All we can say is that the people who taught it since, whether they went down the Ted Wong route and kept it strictly to the things that Bruce Lee had taught, or James DeMille, who was teaching the same sort of things as he was teaching from Bruce and made his own developments on that, or we went the Inner Santo route or the Bustillo route. All we can say as students of the Jeet Kune Do system and philosophy is we have loved what our teachers taught us and we continue to teach it. And Jeet Kune Do is just a name, don't fuss over it.
Right. Yeah. So as I was reading the book and, coming up with questions, one of the questions I came up with was, you said that you didn't understand how people could criticize Dan Inosanto. And my question was going to be to you, but is that really true? And then later today, before I came on the show, I read, you don't have to go into details if you don't want to, but how you got yourself in trouble,
I did.
right? Over,
I did.
yeah, you see, but that was going to be my question to you, because you
Mm-hmm.
wrote, you didn't understand how people could criticize Inosanto, and I was going to ask
Mm-hmm.
you if you thought that that was really true, that you really couldn't understand why or
Mm-hmm.
how.
Right. So now, many years later, I realised lots of different things. So
Yeah.
before we talk about Inosanto, let's talk about Ted Wong.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1993, Dave Carnell brought Ted Wong to the UK. I thought Ted Wong was a very nice man, but when he started showing a defence against a Thai kick, I thought he didn't have a clue what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
6 years later, I was in New York doing the Jeet Kune Do seminar that they did with Richard, Ted, and Chris, and I just went, "This man's a bloody genius. He's fantastic," And I hadn't, because my knowledge wasn't at the level that was
Right.
necessary to appreciate what he was doing. Now I could
Right.
see the skill of the man. Now,
Right.
was Ted Wong an amazing fighter? I don't think he was. He was a very nice man, a very skilled practitioner, but he wasn't a fighter. Many people in martial arts are not fighters.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on what their background is.
Yeah.
Within Santo, what happened was we went to the Philippines in 1992, my first trip to the Philippines. Now, Dad said in seminars, if you went to the Philippines, there is no Filipino martial arts there anymore because most of the practitioners went to Stockton. And we found out, well, that's not true at all. And Richard
Mm-hmm.
Bustillo would go to the Philippines quite a lot. And I don't know if Dan's ever been, but they used to say all sorts of stupid shit about Dan. They would say, oh, we can't go to the Philippines. This was in the Philippines, they were saying this, because he would
Yeah.
be challenged.
Yeah.
No, he wouldn't. They venerate
Right.
Dan Inosanto in the Philippines because without Dan Inosanto and Richard, there wouldn't be this great interest in the Filipino martial arts. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my view. I think they are the best um, advert for these arts. If you go into the
Mm-hmm.
IMB, I'm being the new one, but in the one that was there when Richard was alive, there was a big scroll on the wall thanking Inosanto and Bustillo for the work that they'd done with the Filipino community. So
Oh yeah.
in '92, we go to the Philippines. I'd see all these amazing, amazing Filipino martial artists, and like an idiot, I said that there would be people. You, this was to UK practitioners, teachers, and I said there are people there who I think are better than Dan and Santo. But I was young and stupid. I didn't know what I was talking about. I had just
Mm-hmm.
been amazed by this thing. It's just like a teenager.
Right.
And so, and then you go. So now I would have said at the time I should have just kept. There's a great phrase we use in the UK called "wind your neck in," and I should have wound my neck in because I was
Mhm.
wrong for what I said at the time.
Yeah.
But it was just my enthusiasm, and
Yeah.
I get so enthusiastic about stupid shit that I want to tell everybody about it. It's
Right.
like all sorts of different things, like the Elvis film that's coming out next.
Liam, my router or his router? Because I'm not sure that I don't think that there's anything up with my router, to be honest.
We adapt and we overcome. Don't worry, Liam. We keep going.
Yeah, yeah. He said you saw that. He says you should reboot your router.
What does that
Yeah.
mean? Well, just kick the damn thing. I don't know. Have a wall. Have a wall.
um, yeah, but when I read that, I thought about it because look, I coined a phrase called "Inasanos speak," right?
Okay.
Because he has a way of saying things, and sometimes he himself doesn't realize the impact of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's saying something, but it's not really what he means. And I think that he might have been unaware. If When did he first come to the UK? Do you
79.
79, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So this happened 13 years later. I think that he might have been unaware of what the impact of him start and others starting to spread the word about Filipino art, what impact and effect it had in the Philippines itself.
Yeah, maybe.
You
Yeah. I
see?
mean, the big impact, when I spoke to Kakoi, I met Kakoi on that trip in 92.
Mhm.
The interesting thing about Kakoi then is he had grey hair in 92, but when I saw him a few years later, he had dark hair. So something went on. But I really started to get to know Kakoi in 1998. And that was an introduction made through Richard Bustillo.
Yeah.
We were doing well over here, and he said you should introduce Kakoi to the UK because we had Danny Goober here spreading Dottie Paris. We're starting to really establish Dottie Paris as a system in the UK. And
Mhm.
we brought Kakoi over. And I asked him about, number one, meeting in Asanto when they went around America in the 70s. He
Yeah.
told me about that. But then he said the big impact in the Philippines was the BBC TV program called Way of the Warrior.
Yeah,
And
baby.
there was a 1 hour show on Kakoi and Dossi Paris,
Hmm.
and there was all these seven other different shows, and there was a clip in the I think it was in the Kali Academy where there was Chris Kent and there was Dan and I think Jeff Imada, and there was a clip, cut into
Yeah.
that series, that part. There was another clip cut in on the Wing Chun part as well,
Yeah.
and that made a big difference to the Philippines because this was a show that was syndicated around the world.
Right.
Bizarrely, it's never been put on DVD or streamed, but you can watch it on YouTube. But of course, it just needs bringing up in quality, really,
Yeah.
visual quality. But it's a fantastic, amazing
Oh yeah.
series.
Yeah. We got it. We got it in Barbados.
Yeah, yeah, right, okay,
Yeah.
and that made a big difference as well. And Kakoi said that they were because they first went to the Philippines looking for Kakoi. He was in America, and he came back, and they based their group in the Philippines, and then they went to all the different places from the Philippines. So they were there for quite a while, and then
I
they
see.
they filmed Kakoi when he returned back to the Philippines. But
Yeah.
he said that impact of that TV show on the spread of Filipino martial arts, combined with the seminars, because remember, and you'll know this, that it was the Kali Academy, and that was it. But then in the mid 70s, Richard and Dan were getting requests. So that first of all, it was Richard and Dan used to go and do the seminars,
Yep.
and then as it became more in demand, they started going off and doing their own things, and that's
Hmm.
how eventually we had the Santo Academy and the IMB Academy, and then we had the other one
Yeah.
with Larry and Chris and Cass.
Yeah. When I was reading your description of the IMB,
Hmm.
and So I made it once to the original Kali Academy.
Okay.
Okay. When you look at the pictures in Inosano's book from 1977,
Yep.
and you see the wall of heavy bags, and each heavy bag also has a top and bottom bag and also has a stretch pulley,
Yep.
right? And that's 74 to 84. And then you go to the IMB and they got classroom number one, classroom number two, the weight room, then the classroom with the ring,
Yep.
right? The offices, and then the lockers and showers.
Mm-hmm.
In 1984, my God.
Yeah, but do you know how that happened?
I just know the general story about the Martinez brothers becoming involved.
So it was it Steve or Chuck? Steve Martinez was a developer of shopping
Real
malls,
estate, right? Yeah,
real estate, yeah. And he said to Richard one day, if you could have your own place, what would it look like if it was ideal? What would your ideal martial arts gym look like? So Richard told him and never thought another thing of it. And this went on maybe 3 or 4 months. And then Steve came in one day and said to Richard, um, are you free? And he said, yeah. He said, come with me. So they went to this unit, and he said, I think you'll like this place. I think this is what you're looking for. And Richard was like, I don't know what you mean. He said, I bought this for you. He said, you can't do that. He said, I can do what I want. He said, I think what you're doing is a great thing. We have the money. I would like to back you. So that's what he did. So Richard said, without them got the Steve, especially Steve Martinez, they could have never have done what they did.
yeah,
So that was the original IMB in Asante Martinez Bustillo.
yeah.
And because of that faith in what they were doing and what Steve's money, that's what started it off. And of course, it was very, very successful
Yeah,
because it was exactly what it wanted to be, as opposed to what they did with the Kali Academy, which was went from the backyard. Obviously, it shut down. Bruce died, and they found the Kali Academy.
hmm
And Richard said, we were the most stupid business people you could possibly imagine. He said, when that class opened, he
yeah,
said, first of all, we shut about 6 schools down in the local area because they weren't going to come train with us. And then we made it so physically demanding. We'd start off with 100 students, and 6 months in, we'd have 4 left.
right.
He said, we were the dumbest shits you could possibly imagine in terms of business because we wanted to keep the art to being the best people.
Yeah,
And he said, we'd have never have done that now. That would be ridiculous. But
hmm
that's what they kept doing. They just went through 6 months, every 6 month cycle. They'd have these. And so it built up, a real core of amazing fighters, really, in IMB.
right.
Kali Academy.
Yeah,
And of course, for someone like Chris and Tim Tackett and those guys who'd been in the backyard to then see what they were doing at the Kali Academy and then later at IMB as well,
hmm
it must have been incredible just to see so many faces coming through and then them all leaving. I mean,
yeah,
we know with our students, these are the regular faces, and then all of a sudden one might disappear. But you see so many people come and do 1, 2, 3 lessons, whatever, never come back again.
right.
Well, it was ramped up in the 70s because not only was it the Kali Academy, but it was attached to the Bruce Lee name. We
hmm
know how successful that was.
Yeah. Um, so I recall in '83 when I got started, I recall hearing people say, "Well, whatever the Taekwondo schools are doing, you want to do the opposite when you're running your school, right?"
Hmm.
Okay, and I took that to heart, stupidly, because I remember the day when I had my epiphany was when I happened to be over in the shopping center where the Taekwondo guy's school was, and he had a brand new Mercedes Benz, and I had a Honda Prelude that was starting to rust.
There's
Right?
martial
And
sense and there's business
and
sense.
that yeah, and that's when I started thinking, maybe there's something to learn from these Taekwondo people.
Yeah, well, look how much martial arts business has developed now. You
Yeah.
know, um, when Bob Breen opened the academy in whatever year it was, 88, I think. Yeah, 88. That was such an incredible school. I can't remember if it was Larry. I think it was Dan and Santo opened it. I think that was the first seminar there.
Mm-hmm.
And it inspired me so much. I thought, if ever I could have a place like that. And, a few years later, I did have a place that wasn't the same as that, but it was, I'm proud of my school.
Yeah.
It's a nice place.
Yeah, it is.
And yeah, it was Bob Breen that inspired me to have, a nice martial arts place. And now they're everywhere. There's lots and lots of places. Having said that, in the UK at least, there's still lots and lots of classes in school halls and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cass and I talk about that from time to time. And I came away, even from our most recent conversation, I came away with the belief that it's really tough to run a full-time professional martial arts school in the UK, simply because I guess the approach to business is different. But I'm wrong, am I not?
There are people in the UK with 1,000 students, and there are people in the UK with 6 students.
Okay,
I don't think that's ever changed.
right.
We hover around 100. I'd like another 50 or so, maybe
Hmm.
another 100. And that's something I'm working on this year, really.
Yeah.
And um, I get distracted sometimes, which is not good. With the publishing of books or being a therapist or whatever. And I'm much more single-minded in trying to build the school and keep it. I like the school as it is now. We're getting a good group of people who are high graded now. We're
Hmm.
developing the system, rewriting the syllabus so it's more likely to keep students as well. You
Yeah.
know, if
Yeah.
you I find if you introduce complicated weapons drills and trapping too early, that's a great way to lose students. That
Oh
is.
yeah. But you know why people do that? You know why they do that? This is my
Why other people
theory.
do that?
This is my theory, right?
Hmm.
They go to an Inasano seminar and they figure
Yeah,
whatever Inasano is teaching on the seminar, that's the Inasano curriculum. So that's what I'm supposed to be teaching also. So then they come back and they
yeah,
teach it,
maybe.
right? They come back and they teach it without thinking, well, what level is it? Because he's just teaching
Yeah,
everybody
yeah,
on
yeah,
a seminar, right?
yeah,
And they just think, oh,
yeah,
well, if I went to a seminar and he taught Sombrata, when I come back home, people who've been with me for 6 weeks, I'm going to teach them Sombrata because I want to be
yeah. I used to
pure.
do that. You're right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to do that. This is amazing. Let me show you this. And someone's going, which was the jab and which was the cross? I can't remember
Right.
anymore. No, I'll show you
Yeah.
this. No,
Yeah.
we don't do that anymore. We structure it
You
completely.
can't. You
No, no,
can't.
no, absolutely. No, but
Right?
it took me a long time to learn those lessons as well because you just we're enthusiasts, aren't we? As martial arts students and teachers, we are enthusiasts. Let me
Yes.
share this with you. And
Yes.
so many times I have to pull it back. And yeah, next week I'm in a business organization called the Entrepreneur Circle. And next week I'm going on a Facebook ads course. And I've been in business for a long time and I should know Facebook ads backwards, but I'm still going on a course to learn more about Facebook ads
Okay.
because you can't learn enough.
Yeah.
You know, so much. I mean, business changes so fast. We talked about AI earlier. You've got to have an understanding of AI. I remember going to networking events 15 years ago where people were saying about the evils of social media and you shouldn't be on there and it distracts you. And, it's now absolutely completely normal.
Right.
That's the only place we go, right? And now you have demographics for, Facebook is supposed to be for old farts like me,
Hmm.
whereas TikTok is the place for the kids to go,
Hmm.
and Instagram is a bit of a mix of others, and then they go on Pinterest. Who gives a shit about Pinterest? But
Exactly.
it is that thing, right? There's a social media for each individual person, and I think
Yes.
that's true of martial arts as well. And
Yeah.
I think our art is complex and we tend to attract the people who like that complexity. And at the same time, you're getting people phone up going, "Do you do MMA?" I just say yes, you know, because
Ah,
they don't even know what they're asking for.
they never
When
have.
they say MMA, it's lucky if they can spell it. Yeah.
Yeah, they never have. Right.
So that
I'm going to throw a name at you when it comes to business and marketing in the UK. Chris Cardell. Do you know that name?
I feel like I should,
Chris Cardell.
but I don't. No,
No.
not well.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna send you I'm gonna send you the titles of, because I met Chris years ago at
Hmm.
Dan Kennedy and Bill Glazer events,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. No, I know those guys.
okay, you know those guys.
Hmm.
Yeah. So at one point, Chris was, I believe Chris was their top representative, let's call it, in the
Hmm.
UK. That's why that's
Okay.
why I was wondering, because I know that over the years he's done like Facebook ad courses and what have you, for
Yeah, yeah,
sure.
okay.
So that's why I was wondering if you knew him. Um, yeah, I mean, look, I am always intrigued by anybody who is in this day and age taken a stab at doing Jeet Kune Do and associated disciplines on a full time basis, because it that you want a challenge, that I think is one of the biggest challenges out there. You know,
Interesting. Because I've been
yeah,
doing it since '93.
yeah. Well, I mean, I got my first warehouse, and I made sure that I had the bathroom in the back on the same side of the building that the Inasano warehouse had, right?
Ah, wow.
Right? And so, in fact, there are pictures of his first seminar for me in Miami was in 1989, and there are pictures of that seminar, and there are people who were actually members of the Inasano Academy who think that it's at that school. Right? That's
Yeah.
what a great job we did of replicating the Inasano Academy in Miami. That
All
people
right.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, people actually taught that. Okay, so I, I want to ask you. This came right out of the book. I'm reading something, and then I
Uh-huh.
thought, oh wow, let me ask Andy what he if he thinks this would be a cute name for a school. Small Hinge Jeet Kune Do.
Well, you got to have the rest of the phrase, or else it doesn't understand it. Small hinges swing big doors, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That's a Nigel Bottrell phrase. That is. I don't know where he got it from, but
right.
so Nigel Bottrell is the guy who runs the Entrepreneur Circle. It's like this is a company that's gone from someone's bedroom to turn over 12 million a year now.
Nice.
And he's one of my real mentors. He's a nice guy. He's just been on TV in the UK actually, and so he like an hour TV show. He comes up with all sorts of. I go on his courses all the time,
Hmm.
and constantly trying to learn stuff. And I tried to tell him that what he's trying to teach in business is the same progression as in martial arts.
Yes.
You've got to teach the basic stuff. Some of the things that you come out with, that's black belt stuff.
Right.
The progression of people who are going from, turning their business from, there's big jumps, isn't there? When you got a business that's turning over £1,000 a month, you're not making much money at all. When you turn over £4,000 a month, you might be making some money. When you're starting to do £10,000 months, then you're probably making some money, although the government want most of it.
Hmm.
By the time you're doing 30, £40,000 months, these are big, big numbers now. What is that process to go through that? And I know lots of millionaires now. And one of my questions is to my sometimes. I have a question I ask myself on a regular basis: is why am I not rich? Now, first of all, you have to qualify what rich is, and you
Hmm.
go, well, it's this much in the bank account, or it's this much I'm paying this much tax this year, or what is it that you have parked outside the house, or do you own the house? So you have to qualify what is rich. But then if I
Right.
go on the health side, I'm very rich. Last week, one of my best friends died in his sleep. I'm 63 in 10 days' time, and no health problems at all. You can't get
Hmm.
any wealthier than that. That's wealth. And so, you know, those are the levels. That's how I judge my life. I think we always want more money, but when you are diagnosed with cancer, you don't give a shit about money. All you care about is, will I get through this? And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's where my wealth is, and I'm lucky, and I've got great friends. And my sadness is that I lose my friends as I get older. Well, at some point, all this stuff that we've been talking about Jeff Espin in the last week, at some point, they're going to be doing the same about me. They're going to be putting pictures of me next to them, and this is what happened, and blah blah blah. But now I'm in a really healthy place, and I'm a very lucky person, and I'll keep
hmm,
working on the money. But at the same time, I have the health, and that is number one, the
yeah.
richest
It
you can be.
is. Yeah, yeah. Um, I want you to tell this story because I don't think I'd ever heard this story before. And in the book, it starts out. It has usually been said that Inosanto is the teacher and Richard is the fighter.
Oh yeah, that goes.
Right?
That's the Kali Academy stuff.
Yeah.
So Iron Man of Jeet Kune Do, is that what you're talking about?
And it's so then let's see. Uh, I asked Richard about this one time,
Oh yeah, I know that
and
story.
this is
Right.
what he
Okay.
told me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I know exactly where I said that as well. I can see myself sitting. We're in a car,
Uh,
and I asked Richard. I said, um, "What do you think about people who say that Dan Santo is not a fighter?" And he said, "Oh, he said I hear that all the time." He said, "I asked Bruce Lee that once. I said, oh, okay. What did he say?" He said, "Richard, that fucker can fight." I said, "Oh, what happened?" He said, "We were sparring one time." This is Bruce telling Richard Bustillo this story. He said, "I was sparring with Lil Santo once, and I kept digging him a little bit more and a little bit more, trying to wind him up and annoying. And I did it enough that he came for me." He said, like a banshee coming after me. And I went, "You can fight." And it
yeah.
stopped him like that. And Richard always said that was his thing, and yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? But Richard came from a background of scrapping his whole life.
Oh yeah.
In Hawaii, he would be in
Yeah.
fights. He knew Sonny Berger. He ran with the biker gangs. He was in the sheriff's department. I said to him, "Have you ever been shot at?" He said, "Of course I have." I was like, "No, is that a
Yeah.
normal thing?" One time we were in his car. We were going somewhere. He said, "Just load my gun for me." I was like, "Will I shoot my foot off?" He went, "No, you just put the bullets." We're not gun people generally in the UK,
Yeah.
so that was that. So whereas Inosanto came from a teaching background. He was as you well know, he was a PE teacher,
Right.
and so they were very different. And I said to Richard, "How did you get called the Iron Man of Jeet Kune Do?" He said, he laughed. He thought that was funny. He said, "What used to happen?" He said, "Dan was really bad at taking money off people. So when they didn't pay their fees, they would say, 'Oh, Dan said it's okay. I can come in this month.' And Richard would go, 'No, it isn't.'
Yeah. Yeah.
And they would just go, 'What?' He said, 'Why should you?' So he became known as the hard ass because he would always, Dan didn't get involved in the money side. Richard would just stop him at the door and go, 'You ain't paying, you ain't coming in.' It's as simple as that."
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was how it came, because they thought he was a hard ass, and it started with that. But then there was other experiences as well where, you know, Richard said
Yeah.
sometimes you have to take people in hand as well. So that was that.
Cass told us just last week that that was Bustillo's attitude. It's like, no, right? And then he told us his story. Did you ever hear this story? He didn't name the student, but I'm pretty sure I know who it is. But there was a
Hmm.
guy training at the Kali Academy, and he goes to Bustillo and he's like, "I want to spar with you. I want
Right.
it, because I want to feel it and whatever." And Bustillo goes something like, "You sure about this?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, I gotta feel it and whatever." And Bustillo's like, "Okay." Bam! Knocked him out.
Probably sounds like Chris
All
Kent
right.
said once, we're at a Chris Kent seminar, and he said to me, he said, Richard was amazing. He said he used to knock people out with a jab. I
Yeah.
said, wow, really? He said, yeah. So I asked Richard that next time I saw him. I said, is that true? You used to knock people out with a jab? He said, no, I didn't. He said, what I used to do, I used to hit them with like a 2 or 3 combination. And as they were going down, I'd hit them with a jab as they were going down. It's always looked like I knocked them out with a jab. But that may have
Yeah.
been, he may have been humble saying that. But
Yeah.
we have to go on. The
Yeah.
war
But,
stories become better
right.
with each telling.
Cass just he tells us all the time. Bustillo was just like, oh, no, 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 no. Let's just put the gloves on. You know, if somebody had a theory about something, right? Be like,
Yeah.
we'll put the gloves on.
I asked him about Penjak Salat. I said, why didn't you ever get into Penjak Salat? He said, because they didn't spar. He said, Dan was really, really passionate about this Salat. And he went deeply into it. And he said, I just couldn't, because combat sports was the way forward. That's what he liked. He liked the stick fighting, and he liked the boxing and the kickboxing,
Mhm.
loved Thai boxing, and he liked the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That was his approach. What are
Yeah.
combat sports, and how do you apply it for the street? That was his thing.
Right.
And he said, so this one time, he said, we get people saying, oh, can I run a Salat seminar at your school? And he said, no, it doesn't fit with our mentality. And he had this one guy, he said, we're going to do Salat sparring. He said, oh, okay, go on then, we'll give it a go. And he said, this went on it was a 4-hour seminar, and we're 3 hours in, they've still been doing juros and lankers and God knows what else it is called these days.
Uh,
He's there in his little skirt and stuff like that, and he's dancing around and all that stuff. And Richard, people go, Sifu, he says, when are we doing the sparring? He said, I'll ask him. Hey, when are we doing the sparring? Oh, it's coming, it's coming. Anyway, 3 hours in, he went, the sparring better be coming bloody soon because all these people have come for this stuff. He said, right, okay. He said, we got there. He said, the fuck, I did kickboxing. I said, I couldn't believe it. He said, that was it. He said, we knew that.
yeah.
So he said he never really got into it. And I never really studied it that much. I studied with Richard Boards in the UK for a while. He was a crazy man, he was amazing. Cass came over sometimes. I would do that there, and through the Inner Santo lineage, I learned some things as well.
Mhm.
But my friend Jeff Espinu, who's just passed away, his Salat was amazing. He was really, really good at it, and was very functional with it, and very
Right.
funny with it as well. He could elbow you and make you laugh at the same time.
Yeah.
So I always like some of those elements. I remember Paul Vunak talking once about how they use the forward pressure to improve the trapping, and I like that principle as well. I thought that was quite
Hmm.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a thing, right, that whenever I see people like Brunak, like Cass, because Inasano, I will admit, doesn't focus on that stuff anymore. You know,
No, no,
make extracting the fighting elements of it. You know, that's not his thing. Now it's like the general knowledge. That's what he focuses on.
hmm
But people like Cass and Paul and Chris, they're still doing it. They're
yeah.
still extracting the fighting elements of whatever it is that you come across. You know, so okay, so let's close with this. Right now, where did I take this from? Okay, you've said that most people today possess more knowledge than Bruce Lee did simply because they've had more time
Yeah,
and they've had access to more material.
true.
Okay, so is Jeet Kune Do therefore evolving beyond Bruce Lee? Um, and if it is, at what point does it stop being Jeet Kune Do and simply become something else that we keep calling Jeet Kune Do?
Uh, on the end part, I don't know. I said that. I said that if we hadn't learned more than Bruce Lee knew, and we've been studying for 45 years, and Bruce died after studying for 18 years. Even if he was twice as good as us, at some point we should have known more stuff.
Right.
That doesn't mean we're better practitioners, does it? That's
Right.
like saying, I understand more about running than Carl Lewis knew, but he could run and jump faster than I ever could. Jesse Owens could as well, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my perspective, is that there is so much knowledge out there now. God, what would Bruce Lee have made of YouTube? It would have
Right.
been one of those things,
Right. Yeah.
so much knowledge, but how much application, how much depth, how many times do people skim across a subject, and then they are the ones who are like, oh, that's no good. I was watching your last interview with Rick Fay the other day, and he was saying that he didn't have enough experience to know what to throw away. How could he do that? This is in his earlier days.
Mm-hmm.
And now possibly that's true as well. How much knowledge do we have to know what to throw away? But in the end, it comes down to what feels right for us. In terms of the Jeet Kune Do, I think that what holds it together is always the philosophy, is always the path that Bruce was following. This was an evolutionary art, and if we don't accept this as an evolutionary art, that's probably a bit mad. Have you read James Bishop's book? What is it? It's called The Source of the Tao.
Who wrote the
Have you
Tao?
seen that?
Yeah.
Who wrote the Tao?
Who wrote the
What
Tao?
a great book!
Yes.
That's a really. I was gifted it last weekend, and
Ah,
I was so impressed with the research that the man did to
it's
do that
amazing.
book.
It's amazing.
Absolutely incredible.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you
think
wouldn't want to
I probably refer to that about once a week.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah. I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
surprised. It
yeah.
is an incredible book, and there's not many books on Jeet Kune Do that you can say that's about these days. But he did.
Hmm.
Ah, ah, we nearly got to the end, and so an answer to your question is: at what point does it not become Jeet Kune Do anymore? It becomes not Jeet Kune Do when we're not following the principles of the system itself. You know, all the basic philosophies. If we're not studying the arts and understand the arts,
Hmm.
then I don't think it's Jeet Kune Do anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say that I teach unified fighting systems now, that's not Jeet Kune Do. Jeet Kune Do is part of unified fighting systems, but the principle remains that I Jeet Kune Do my whole life. When I
Right.
started studying philosophies, psychologies, I went and learned hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming and non-violent communication. Basically, they all had three letters. So non-violent communication was NVC, NLP, and then neuro-associative conditioning with Tony Robbins. Anything
Mhm.
with three letters, I would study it. And I did the whole thing with a Jeet Kune Do mindset. How
Right.
does this blend together? How does this fit together? How do they
Right.
complement each other? So the things that I learned from Marshall Rosenberg, when I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, he explained the same principle in a more simplified way. And I go,
Yes.
oh, I've got a better version of this now.
Right. Yeah.
That's Jeet Kune Do
See,
for me.
right. So that's why, right? That's why I had an initial reaction to this idea of the decline of Jeet Kune Do or the need to revive it.
Hmm.
That's why my initial reaction was like, well, hold on a second. Why are we talking so negatively about it when it has had such a massive positive impact on us for decades?
Hmm.
Isn't that what we should instead be focusing on? That was my idea.
Yeah, yeah. Well, to a degree, yes. But I think that the challenge, especially when we did that thing with Dan Holloway, the thing that comes out is the further we are from the death of the founder, the more difficult it is to explain to someone who comes in and walks in the door asking for MMA who Bruce Lee was. And well, I mean, a young student, she's 11 years old, and her dad said to me the other day, "Oh yeah, she's watched Enter the Dragon now," and I said, "Oh, good, that's a good thing." Sort of stay away from Fist of Fury, but it's if you watch. because Enter the Dragon is a James Bond film, really, isn't it? It's that type of
Yes.
anybody could watch it. It's a little bit violent, but it's not mad violent,
Yeah.
and I think that's an acceptable film for a kid of 10 years old to watch.
Yeah.
I would certainly be okay with a 10-year-old watching that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and this is Bruce Lee, and then you start to get the idea of, oh, this is this guy, because he's part of the mythology in the same way that Marilyn Monroe was and James Dean was. He's part of the mythology
Hmm.
who were icons. He's an icon, and
Yeah.
that's the issue, really.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of people who only want to follow the icon. When Richard died, it took me 2 years really to start to get the whole idea in. So a year after he died, we brought Chris Kent to the UK, and Chris was absolutely brilliant, and he really sort of filled the gap, and that was fine. And then a year later, he came again, and I realised I was having a problem, not with Chris in itself, but bringing people over and going to the same hotel and doing the same places. And I understood that I had a Richard Bustillo hole in me,
Yeah.
and Chris wasn't filling it because he's Chris Kent.
Right.
Now, if I was as close to Chris as I was with Richard, I'd have the same thing if Chris wasn't coming over anymore.
Hmm.
And then COVID hit, and that mucked everything up, really. So we had that break. But it wasn't that Chris couldn't fill Richard's shoes. That wasn't it. It was I had the Richard Bustillo hole.
Oh yeah.
And once I understood that,
Yeah.
once the Richard Bustillo hole not been filled, but I understood it, then I could deal with bringing people over again, which is why Steve Dela Cruz started to come over, and we're bringing Jeff over, and Johan will be coming over, and all that type of stuff.
Mhm.
Because now I could go to those hotels and not have the ghost following me around all over the place.
Right. Yeah.
Then also, of course, my wife died some nearly 4 years ago, and I understood grief in a completely different way then, and it was dealing with those traumas helps me to understand. Imagine how bad it must have been for Richard and Dan and all of those guys who knew Bruce,
Right.
this vibrant, powerful man. And I said the one of the things that I could never get my head around with Kirsty was one day I could do this, I could touch her arm, and the next day she didn't exist. Well, imagine you now are the fittest man in the world, and he doesn't exist anymore.
Hmm.
They must have been utterly and completely frightened.
Yeah.
I tell a story in the book about when Richard was asked the question at the 2000 conference, how did you hear that Bruce Lee died? And he told the story very eloquently, and he talked about going to see Dan and Santo the following morning. The morning they got the phone call, and he was teaching Bob Ward in his garage. And as he was telling the story, Richard started to cry. And all of us, there was about 80 people in the room, were just stunned. We didn't know what to do, because this is the Iron Man of Jeet Kune Do, and he's crying about his friend. And he stopped and he said, happens to all of us. Every year, one of us gets us. And it made us laugh, and we can continue again.
Hmm.
And that was the power of this loss in their life. And so
Yeah.
we end up with this argument now about whether we're staying true to Bruce Lee or not, without any consideration to the pain that those guys must have gone through from losing their close friend.
Yeah. Yeah. I look. I think that any argument about Jeet Kune Do is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because what does it serve?
No, absolutely nothing. Yeah.
Right. Now Chris Kent said to me, Chris goes, yeah, but Dwight, but you like to poke the beer. You're on Facebook
Well,
all
you
the time.
do, and it's
It
true.
is. Well, it's because, I want to see who's out there, and I want to see what kind of minds are out there. So
Yeah,
I was telling Ronnie earlier today, I put up a post that got zero traction. It was a picture of a hotel on Miami Beach that's called the Kent Hotel.
right.
There's another hotel called the Leslie.
Ah, yeah, I saw that.
Okay. And then if you go to the back of Cass's school, which is on Canby Avenue.
Yeah.
There's a set of condos called Canby Woods.
Right.
That's the name of the building. So I put this up. Nobody got it. But it's because I'm really interested, and that's why I said to you, that, like, I mean, we're going on an hour and 45 minutes, so I'm gonna let you go because it's way past your bedtime.
It's just about my bedtime. That's true.
Right, right. And so I appreciate this, but I could stay up all night talking with you, Andy, um, because you're brilliant. I love the book. Actually, I have a confession. Yours is the first Kindle book I ever bought, right? Because I was like, well, wait, I got to read as much of this guy's book as I can before he comes on my show.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm writing an updated version of it now, which originally was supposed to come out in January, was next supposed to come out in March, but I'll be honest, it probably will be out in the summer. And when
Okay,
I've got it and when I've updated it, I will send you a paperback copy.
I appreciate that. All right. Well, listen, my friend, great to officially meet and talk with you.
Thank you. Sorry about the challenges. I don't know what was going on there, but
Yeah, no worries, no worries. You've given me a new perspective on the idea of challenges.
I'll read all the comments afterwards as well. So because as I've seen them all going through, but I can't keep up with them. I have to concentrate on you because my poor little brain can only handle one thing.
I hear you.
Well,
I
not
hear
only
you.
the comments, I've got to deal with redialing every time.
Yeah, no worries. Right. So, well, what you can do when I click off,
Yeah,
it'll take Facebook a few minutes, and
yeah.
then it'll go up there, and all the Facebook comments you can read.
Oh, cool.
So you can go back through them, and if you feel like replying to them or whatever, you can do that.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. So once again, thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it, Andy.
Thanks for the opportunity. I've watched so many of these as well. I feel like I'm in esteemed company.
Ah, that's very gracious of you, my friend.
You take care. Thanks
All
ever so
right.
much.
Okay.
Take
All
care.
right. Take
Thanks
care. Bye.
everybody. Bye. Now we can.
All right. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, I love talking to guys that like when you read about them and you hear about them, like you feel like, well, what the heck have I been doing with my life? And for me, and Andy is one of those. If you guys have not if you haven't seen his book, let me see if I can grab the cover quickly and put it up here for you. It's called Punchin' Punchin' Above My Height, I think is what it's called. Looks like that. Yeah, Punching Above My Height. So I got the Kindle thing, but it's available on Amazon. So I think you guys should really really check that out, right? And if you want other stuff to check out, go to rebelgear.printify.me, rebelgear.printify.me, and that's where you'll see stuff like this: the Fire and Focus T-shirt, Four Tenets of Jeet Kune Do T-shirt, Fire and Focus coffee mug, and all that good stuff. That is at Printify, Rebel Gear, sorry, rebelgear.printify.me, rebelgear.printify.me. At PayPal, get that out of there, Dwight. I thought I had it under control. There we go. All right. At paypal.me/unified MA Miami, paypal.me/unified MA Miami. You will find the Jeet Kune Do Journey Volume 1. I really should have like a real book, like Andy has a real book. This is still just a 9.95 PDF, right? But you can find that at paypal.me/unified MA Miami. And that is it for today. It's been a little bit hectic trying to get back to Wednesdays with the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast and what have you, but I promise everything will be back under control within a couple of weeks. Ron Reagan and I are on the road next Friday. So and we're in LA, and that's always a little bit hectic to try to do a thing. And then the following weekend, we're not on the road, but we do have an event here in South Florida. And then the weekend after that, we're back in LA for the Cas Magna Instructor Conference. So I can't tell you when next we'll have an episode of the dialogues, but I will try very hard to put something together for you. Okay, so you guys enjoy your weekend. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. Take care. Talk soon.